Hello, my name is Ted. Today I want to talk to you about the types of people you will see on stage. There are different types of people who get to the stage for Hinn, for Kathryn Kuhlman, and Amy Semple McPherson. I choose those three because those three had screeners, people who would keep away those who were not yet healed. If you're going to visit Andrew Womack, or if you're going to visit Kenneth Copeland, you will see a different type of setting whereby you won't be screened out. You will be able to get up front. All right, with Kathryn Kuhlman and with Hinn, you will have people who are screened out. Number one type of person that gets through these screeners are the desperate. The desperate are looking for Hinn simply to touch them. There was a woman who lived in Jesus' day, and she was in a crowd of people. She had an issue of blood for 12 years, and she just wanted to touch Jesus because she believed that if she could touch Jesus, she would be healed. And she was. Jesus healed her. But Jesus didn't know who he healed because he felt something called virtue leaving his body. All right, these people, the desperate, are desperate to get on stage to be touched by or slain by Hinn. They'll do anything to get on stage. Unfortunately, for most of them, they will not get on stage because they are screened out by people, volunteers, who work for Hinn. Secondly, you have claimers. Claimers are a tough group because they've been trained by people like Kenneth Copeland and Andrew Womack to say they are healed when in fact they are not. But they believe if they claim they are healed, they will be healed. And they also believe that if they do it publicly, especially in front of a large audience like this, they're going to get healed. And so the claimers come up and say, I have been healed of arthritis, when in fact nothing has happened in their body. But they will say it because they believe they have to say it in order to get healing. It's a teaching that both Andrew Womack and Kenneth Copeland teach. So these people claim even when nothing is happening. Thirdly, you have the group who are the uncertain. This especially came through in follow-ups. There were about 50 different follow-ups done by different names provided by Kathryn Kuhlman, Hinn, and Todd Benchley. They each gave names to different people, different organizations, medical doctors, etc., to follow up on those who were healed in their crusades. And those names were studied and researched, and it was found that out of those 50-some people, nobody was healed permanently. It was a temporary experience at best. And they came up with several conclusions, and one of the questions they asked the people, they talked to doctors, they talked to family, they talked to the people. But one of the reasons, or one of the questions they brought up to these people were, why did you go up forward? And the answers were various, but a lot of them came down to just in case. So I call these people the uncertain. They're out in the audience. They are in the left upper balcony. And Hinn calls out and says, up in the upper left balcony, somebody's getting healed of cancer of the throat. Why, I have cancer of the throat. I'm in the left-hand side of the balcony. It could be or it must be me. I better go forward just to make sure. Well, I'll do anything to get rid of this cancer. I don't want to lose my throat. I don't want all the problems that are going to exist. I've come here to be healed. And Benny Hinn is calling out my area, my disease. I'm going forward. And a lot of these people their disease is not even being called out, but it's something similar. All right, I don't have throat cancer, but I do have cancer in my chest. Maybe he means me. Nobody else in my group, nobody else in this area is going forward, so I will go. And there are people who do this. So those are the uncertain. They just want to make sure, well, it could be me, so I better get my butt up there and testify. The next group of people are the sealers. The sealers are people who've been trained by Benny Hinn to go up and confess their healing in order to make sure the healing sticks. Because if you don't go forward, you're not going to keep your healing, according to Benny Hinn. So he wants to make sure that if you feel like you've been healed, that you get forward and tell everybody you've been healed. That's part of the process. So you get healed out there in the audience, but it's going to go away if you don't go up and seal the deal by telling everybody that you are healed. For Benny Hinn, it is a two-step process. All right, so you have people in the audience who feel something. Benny Hinn emphasizes that you're going to feel something in your hip. If you have hip disease, you're going to feel something. It could be a burning. It could be a tingling. It could be any kind of other feeling, and very likely pain going away. If any of those experiences happening, you need to go and seal the deal. You will get a lot of sealers. I've only seen one of these in Kathryn Kuhlman's grouping because she didn't teach this. And this is a guy who's coming forward, getting on stage, and he says, 20 years ago, Kathryn, I was at a crusade of yours, and I was healed, but I didn't go forward. So the last 20 years, I have been living with the symptoms. I need today to tell the audience that I have been healed. He was a sealer. All right, so you have sealers. You also have happy sharers. Happy sharers are people who really have felt something, and especially, number one feeling that they get is a lack of pain. Let's say I have arthritis in my hip. I've come in a wheelchair, it's a rented wheelchair or it's a cheap wheelchair, and I end up going in my wheelchair, or else maybe I'm struggling at the door and an usher gives me a wheelchair, which is something Kathryn Kuhlman did a lot of, renting wheelchairs and giving them out to people coming into the door. Think about that one. It's a little trick that she used. All right, so I have a wheelchair, and I'm in a wheelchair because of my arthritis. My hip is really hurting me on a regular basis. It's painful. I can walk, but pain keeps me not wanting to walk. So I'm in this wheelchair. I get special seating because at Kathryn Kuhlman or Benny Hinn's, I get special seating if I'm in a wheelchair. And lo and behold, during the service, the pain goes away. And because the pain goes away, I feel great. I'm convinced I am healed. God has touched me. I have been healed. So I go on stage, I testify, and of course I get out of my wheelchair. Or maybe, and most likely, I've walked up on stage, but somehow magically it appears on stage because ushers are trained to bring the wheelchairs after these people. And the wheelchair is there up on stage, and it's one that was given to me by an usher before I came into the building, and Kathryn points out and talks all about the wheelchair. Is that your wheelchair? Well, yeah, it really isn't in my wheelchair, but okay, yeah, it's wheelchair that I was sitting in a few minutes ago, and you don't need it anymore, do you? No, I don't, because I'm healed. All right, that is all part of the show. The happy sharers experience something real. I've talked in another video of what that reality is for most people. And what that reality is for most people is a temporary lack of pain or a temporary relief of a symptom. Not the disease itself, that's never cured, but rather there's a temporary lack of symptom. And so I conclude, because of the context of the meeting and because I'm there to be healed, I conclude God has healed me. But 2 hours later, my gosh, that pain returns and I feel, oh, that's just terrible. Look at some other videos of mine. This is called the placebo effect. Very effective after a lot of expectation. Is the ingredient you need for a placebo effect. Expectation. And think of all the expectation you've got as you've been worshiping and feeling so close to God. You've got so much expectation and trust. Trust in the authority on stage. Kathryn Kuhlman, Hinn. My gosh, they are men and women of God. And you add those two things together and you have the perfect ingredient. The perfect ingredients to build up a placebo effect. All right, these are the happy sharers. I only included that. There are rare cases where people really do get healed. From over 400 studies, I should say almost 400 studies, done by people healed in from 4 different people. I've been to the first 3. Charles Price is the final one. Quite a few from him, 350. There were 5 founded in Charles Price's group that were permanently healed. But there are certain types of diseases. They are not diseases that affected the body itself, maybe in pain, but not in a way that doctors could put their hands on and see under a microscope. So deformities and such things like that. So there's different types of diseases. One is called the functional disease, and those are curable by placebos. And you have structural diseases. Those, most cases, you will never find the placebo able to deal with those. That's another time I'll talk to you about that, because there are different types. Some things can be healed by placebo effects, some things cannot. That's another story. All right, the happy sharers was the 5th group. The 6th group and final group is, actually there's one other after this, but the exaggerators. Both Kathryn Kuhlman and Hinn admit and say that there are a lot of people on their stage who exaggerate. Now, they are going to be exaggerating not only how bad things are, but how much and how better they feel. For some reason, this kind of drama healing is very effective. And people catch on to that and fall into place, and we'll say that even in just real life, when people go to doctors, they like to exaggerate. Many people like to exaggerate their illnesses. Oh, doctor, I feel so, it's so bad. They'll play it to the nth degree. So there are exaggerators. Hello. I forgot one of the best ones. Sometimes, with both Hinn and Kathryn Kuhlman, there will be times where people are on stage and nothing at all is happening, has happened, or will happen. This is the case that happened with me and my friends. We were at a Kathryn Kuhlman crusade. We had been in an accident about a month and a half previous to that, and I had a broken leg, he had a broken elbow, and pins put into his hip, And we were out in the audience watching Kathryn Kuhlman. At that time, I was just beginning to search into what the heck is going on. This is 1975. And I was beginning to have a few questions about some things going on in the miracle services. But I had no clue what to think about it. So I still trusted a lot in that whatever Kathryn Kuhlman did or said was really 100% from God. And my friend had, the one with the broken elbow, he had not in the past 6 weeks been doing his exercises. And he's out in the audience thinking, am I getting healed or not? So he's waving his arm like this while it's in a sling. And some usher sees this and says, whoa, get yourselves up to the front. And sure enough, he drags us all up to the front. Actually dragged my friend and his buddy up there. And so two of them are up front, talk to Kathryn Kuhlman and say there's a third person. I'm drawn up to the front and everything. Kathryn Kuhlman says that we're all healed. Well, both of us, the ones who had problems. I had a broken leg, head concussion, lung contusions, all kinds of problems. But she says we're all healed. And several days later, my friend says to me, I don't think anything really happened. The interesting thing about that night is the audience was completely convinced that something huge happened. I mean, here my friend is waving his arm and it was broken. He couldn't have done that beforehand. Could he have? No. See, this is, and now this is kind of the conclusion of everything. Kathryn Kuhlman and Benny Hinn are the type of evangelists who need to take this, all 6 or 7 different types of people I've mentioned above, and they need to make every one of their stories sound like they have gone from complete need of healing to complete healing. If you follow up with these people, if you know what's going on with their lives, you will see this is kind of fictional, as in very fictional. Nevertheless, what they are doing is having crusades, and it is their responsibility as the crusade leader to convince the audience that every one of these people up on stage are getting completely healed from something terrible to something good. And the better they can do that, the more people will show up at their crusades. This is Ted Olson. I hope you have a great day. May God be with you. Amen.